An enormous Persian army, the absolute pride of the Sasanian Empire, stretches for miles across the plain. At its heart, a core of elite heavy cavalry. Legendary warriors they called the Immortals. Their target? The Roman fortress city of Dara. The Persian commander is so confident of his victory, he's already sent a message to the enemy general inside the city. The message? Have my bath and my lunch ready. I'm coming. But what he doesn't see are the 600 horsemen hiding on his flank. A coiled spring of nomadic fury, held in reserve by a brilliant and very young Roman commander. The Persians couldn't have known that in the next few minutes, a single, perfectly timed charge would not just break their lines, it would shatter the will of their entire army. This isn't just the story of a battle. This is the moment-by-moment account of how tactical genius, gutsy deception, and one of the most devastating cavalry attacks in history actually happened. Now, to understand how a few hundred horsemen could turn the tide against thousands, we need to rewind. The year is 530 AD, and the world? It's dominated by two superpowers, the Eastern Roman Empire, what we call Byzantium today, and the Sasanian Persian Empire. For centuries, these two giants had been locked in a grinding, bloody rivalry. Think of it like the Cold War, except neither side ever went cold. It was a grand chess match played across the scorching deserts of the East. The latest flashpoint was the Iberian War, a fight over a strategic kingdom in the Caucasus Mountains. The Persian Shah, Cavad I, saw blood in the water. His target, the major Roman frontier fortress of Dara. Now, for the new Roman emperor, Justinian, the situation is looking grim. The early years of his reign had seen mixed results against the Persians. And now, a massive Sasanian army, estimated at around 40,000 men, is on the march. If Dara falls, the entire Roman East is wide open. Justinian needed a miracle. Or at the very least, a general who wasn't going to flinch when he saw those odds. He turned to a young, ambitious commander, still in his late 20s, who had recently been promoted to Magister Militum per Orientem, Supreme Commander of the Army of the East. His name? Flavius Belisarius. And his orders were simple, if not impossible. Go to Dara with about 25,000 men and hold the line. So when these two armies finally face off on the plains outside Dara, the gap in numbers is intimidating. But this is more than just a difference in size. This is a clash of entire military philosophies. Leading the Persian host is a general named Firuz. He's a product of the Sasanian military machine, a system built on one thing, shock and awe. And why wouldn't he be confident? The soul of his army is its heavy cavalry, the legendary Sasanian cataphracts. Think of them as the tanks of the ancient world, both horse and rider encased in armor, trained to charge in disciplined waves, a tsunami of iron designed to pulverize anything in its path. And behind them, Firuz's ace in the hole, the Jayadin, the Immortals. This elite corps of heavy lancers, the pride of the Shah himself, were considered the best of the best. The Persian plan was brutally simple and usually brutally effective. Advance. Soften them up with a storm of arrows, then shatter their lines with unstoppable cavalry. Now, facing this juggernaut is Belisarius. Young, outnumbered, commanding a force whose infantry is, let's be honest, of questionable quality. In a straight-up fight, they would almost certainly break the second those cataphracts hit them. But Belisarius was not a conventional general, and he had three secret weapons. Weapon 1, the Butsalari. These weren't your standard army troops. They were Belisarius's own elite household cavalry, fiercely loyal and superbly equipped. And here's what made them terrifying. They were trained to fight both as heavy lancers and expert horse archers. That's a deadly combination you almost never see. Weapon 2, the mercenaries. Belisarius had recruited a contingent of foreign killers, among them 300 Heruls, a fierce Germanic people known for their wild, almost reckless courage. But more importantly, he commanded several squadrons of Huns, masters of the steppe, peerless horsemen, unmatched with the bow, experts in the hit-and-run tactics that heavy cavalry absolutely hates. Belisarius knew they were the perfect antidote to the slow, ponderous power of the Persian cataphracts. Weapon 3, and the most important one, was his own mind. He looked at the 40,000 Persians. He looked at his own 25,000 men, and he knew a normal battle was suicide. So he made a decision that would define his career. He wouldn't give the Persians the fight they wanted. He would force them to fight the battle he wanted. Here's where it gets brilliant. Instead of hiding behind Dara's walls, Belisarius marches his entire army out onto the open plain. Now, this seems like absolute madness. You're outnumbered. Your infantry is mediocre. Why would you leave the safety of your walls? But it was a calculated gamble. He chose his ground carefully, and then gave his infantry an unusual order. Not to sharpen their spears, but to pick up shovels. For an entire day, his men dug. The historian Procopius, who was actually there at this battle, tells us they carved out a series of strange, disconnected trenches. The main trench was pulled back at the center while the flanks jutted forward. He then dug other trenches at angles to the main line. And crucially, he left narrow pathways across them at key intervals. To the Persians, this must have looked bizarre, but it was a work of sheer genius. See, the trench wasn't designed to stop the Persian charge. It was designed to ruin it. It would force those unstoppable cataphracts to slow down, break formation, and funnel themselves into pre-prepared killing zones. The entire battlefield was a trap. He placed his weaker infantry behind the central trench for protection. Roman cavalry went on the flanks. And then, he placed his trump cards. At the angled corners, he positioned his Hunnic cavalry, 600 under Simus and Ascan on the right, and another group of Huns under Sunicus and Igon on the left. From there, they could pepper the Persians with arrows, but more importantly, they could use the hidden pathways to burst out and slam into the flank of any enemy who crossed. And then the final piece. He took the 300 Heruli cavalry and hid them completely behind a small hill on his far left flank. An ambush, coiled and waiting. The first day passed with just a few skirmishes. On the second day, a reported 10,000 more Persian troops arrived from the city of Nisibis, swelling Firuz's already massive force. Utterly convinced of his superiority, Firuz sent his arrogant little message: "Prepare my bath and lunch inside Dara." The stage was set for day 3. As dawn broke, the battle began. Not with a charge, but with a storm of arrows. Procopius notes that a strong wind was blowing from the Roman side toward the Persians, giving Roman archers a small but significant edge. After the archery duel, Firuz ordered his first major assault. A wave of cavalry, including some of his elite immortals, crashed forward against the Roman left wing. The weight was immense, and for a terrifying moment, it looked like the Roman line might buckle. But this was exactly what Belisarius had been waiting for. As the Persians pressed their attack, overextended, tunnel-visioned, focused only on the enemy in front of them, Belisarius gave the signal. From behind the hill on the far left, 300 heralds exploded into view, charging at full gallop, straight into the flank and rear of the attacking Persians. At the same time, the Huns under Sunicus and Igon wheeled out from their position and slammed into the other side. The Persians were caught completely by surprise. Attacked from 3 directions, their charge disintegrated into chaos. They broke and fled back to their own lines, leaving, according to Procopius, some 3,000 dead on the field. The first trap had worked perfectly. Firuz was likely furious. His opening move had been swatted aside, but he was not done. He would not make the same mistake twice. Now Firuz turned his full fury on the Roman right wing. He gathered the absolute cream of his army, the bulk of his cataphracts, and the pride of the empire, the Djayadin, the Immortals, under their commander, Barismanus. This would be the decisive blow. No tricks, no finesse, just pure, overwhelming force. And honestly, it worked. The ground shook as thousands of armored horsemen began their advance, a moving forest of lances and steel. This was the sight that had broken armies across the continent. They hit the Roman right with terrifying force. Despite the trench, the sheer power of the Persian elite was too much. The Roman cavalry on the right wing buckled, broke, and began falling back toward the walls of Dara. The Immortals surged after them, sensing victory. The Roman line was broken. From the Persian perspective, the battle was all but won. But Belisarius, watching calmly from the center, seems to have been waiting for this exact moment. Whether his right flank's retreat was planned or not, historians still debate this. He now sprang his second and deadlier trap. He gave the order to the 600 Hunnic horsemen under Simus and Ascon. In an instant, they burst from their concealed position. They didn't charge the front of the Immortals. That would have been suicide. Instead, they wheeled around and smashed with breathtaking speed into the exposed rear of the pursuing Persian column. Let that sink in. The Immortals, some of the most disciplined heavy cavalry on the planet, were suddenly hit from a direction they never expected. While they were focused on running down the Romans in front, a whirlwind of arrows and lances tore into their vulnerable rear. The 600 Huns darted in, loosing deadly volleys from horseback, charging into disordered pockets of men. And then came the moment that decided everything. In the chaos, the Hunnic commander Sunicus fought his way toward the Persian command. He personally killed the standard-bearer of the Immortals. And a moment later, he killed their general, Belisarius, throwing him from his horse. The effect was catastrophic. The Persian elite saw their commander fall and their sacred standard disappear. At the same time, the Roman cavalry they'd been pursuing rallied and turned to attack their front. Trapped. Leadership gone. The legendary Immortals shattered. Their discipline evaporated into a desperate fight for survival. And then, a full-blown rout. In just a few minutes, thousands of the finest soldiers in the Persian Empire were cut down. The destruction of the Persian elite wasn't just a physical blow. It was a psychological catastrophe. The rest of the Persian army, tens of thousands of men who had barely been involved in the fighting, watched in horror as their most feared unit was systematically dismantled. And they all thought the same thing. If the Immortals can be broken, what hope do we have? Panic rippled through the Persian lines. Their will to fight evaporated. What remained of Pyrrhus's army dissolved and fled, pursued by the victorious Romans. Belisarius, ever the cautious commander, called off the pursuit, content to secure his monumental victory. The final toll was staggering. The Persians reportedly lost over 8,000 men, the vast majority from their irreplaceable heavy cavalry. Roman losses were far lighter. The Battle of Dara was more than just a victory. It was a statement. A stunning win that reversed a trend of Roman humiliation against the Persians and shot the young Belisarius to instant fame, marking him as one of the great military minds of all time. Now, the title of this video is, of course, a simplification. It wasn't just 600 Huns against 40,000 Persians. It was a whole army of 25,000 men, led by a brilliant commander. But the title captures a crucial truth. The victory was won because Belisarius understood the unique strengths of every single soldier under his command. He used his weaker infantry as the anvil, his elite cavalry as the hammer. And at the decisive moment when everything hung in the balance, it was the speed, ferocity, and perfect timing of those 600 Hunnic horsemen that acted as the surgeon's scalpel, cutting out the heart of the Persian army. The Battle of Dara shows us that a battlefield can be an instrument. And a great general? He's the composer. Belisarius didn't just fight, he orchestrated a masterpiece. If you want more stories like this, of incredible underdogs, impossible odds, and the tactical genius that turned the tide, hit that subscribe button and the bell. We spend a lot of time researching and writing these, and honestly, your support is what keeps this channel alive. If you want to go one step further, consider joining our patrons on Patreon. Links in the description. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.